What was that?
Tricked me into becoming an anarchist. Rothbard was very tricky.
You think that's an analogy? Really, Jim?
It is an analogy. Well,
you think sleep sex is an analogy?
The Satanism has a lot of important lessons that a lot of people can take away, especially like not hurting kids. It's the number one thing.
Yeah. That did feel kind of fraudy. What are your thoughts on agorism?
It's not going to stop the state. It's not going to help stop the state. It's not going to bring anarchy in our lifetime. Probably help states exist longer.
Greetings, consequences. Welcome back to Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I will be Patrick Smith. Today's guest is an ex-Satanist, a consequentialist, a nap non-cultist, and that's being charitable. He has a long list of criticisms for Bitcoin. He has criticisms of agorism. And he knows a ton about alcohol prohibition in the United States. So we're just going to kind of go everywhere. And we're going to have a great chat today with Jim Jesus.
From Dallas, Texas, this is Anarchast.
So there it is. Jim Jesus, welcome to Anarchast. How are you?
Pretty well, thank you.
Excellent, sir. I have had you on Disenthrall before, the now defunct channel that we are murdering in lieu of doing Anarchast for real big time. So I needed to get you on here. When I had you on Disenthrall, it was a debate. We disagreed hard, hot, heavy, hard. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we come to some agreement somewhere along that process. A little bit more, yes. Not completely, but a little bit more.
On the non-aggression principle, and you guys can go search that channel for that. I'm curious. You guys let me know in the comments if you would like me to take some of the greatest hits from Disenthrall and upload them to Anarchast now that we're kind of focusing everything here. There's a lot of good chats over there that I want to bring with me. I don't want to just leave in the dust. So let me know if you would hate that or like that or whatever. We can make that happen. Okay, Jim, this is a smorgasbord of things that are going to trigger me, trigger the audience, trigger libertarians. We're also going to probably agree on a lot. I had a guest on the show not too long ago called Rafael Laverde. He's the crypto vigilante guy. And he is one of the most pro cryptocurrency guys I know on the face of this planet. He takes it almost to a spiritual level, the amount he agrees with cryptocurrency as a technology and the things that it can do for humanity. And so I saw you publish a video on your channel. People can find you, links in the description. Jim Jesus is your channel. You're also the host of a podcast called Lolberts, by the way. We'll have a link in the description.
The Lolberts.
For that as well.
That's our word.
That's well, let's start there. What do you mean Lolberts is your word? What do you mean?
Okay, so I had a friend who was I think his only real exposure on the internet was on a very fringe website called Conspiracy Science, which then was later called the Skeptic Project. And at the time, he's now a libertarian, but at the time he was a Democrat, and he used to call me a Lolbert. And it was a shortened version of just calling me a Lolbertarian. And when I started my podcast, I was I need to think of a good word. And I wanted to jump in front of that because I thought that was such a catchy term that I wanted to jump in front of it before it got popular. And so I called my show the Lolberts, and everybody was asking me what the hell is a Lolbert? And I was it's short for the for Lolbertarian. And
but then what happened? It seems like it tried to get co-opted as an insult. So what happened with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was supposed to be an insult. And if you go to thelolberts.com and you actually look up, there's actually a section on what is a Lolbert or something like that. And it has my original definition of the Lolbert. And you can go look at it. Which I think is I should probably pull that up. But I wanted to jump in front of it because I thought it was such a catchy I don't have the Lolberts in my thing. It was such a catchy term that I wanted to jump in front of it and co-opt it. So I wanted it to kind of turn it into what people use the N-word. It's only for art. We only Lolbert can call another Lolbert. And so that's why that's our word.
It is your word. It is your intellectual property.
A derogatory term for a libertarian, a stereotypical libertarian who doesn't shut up about Ayn Rand or Ron Paul, a Republican who smokes weed.
Oh.
those are my definition.
There you go. All right. So I don't remember how we met, how we got introduced or whatever.
Kokesh.
It
was the whole Kokesh stuff. Yeah. Because we were both, or I was a Kokesh critic very early on. Yeah.
That whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, but I remember when I started watching some of your content and I realized that you were a consequentialist, I pretty much philosophically dismissed you as irrational, if I'm being honest. And and then we had like some back and forths and some debates on it, and we talked through it. And I have a better understanding of your position. I still don't agree, but you know what? Like, out of everybody I know, and this is what I've learned after having known you for years, I can honestly say that you hold to libertarian principle more consistently than a lot of the people that don't take consequentialist positions. And I find that terribly embarrassing for them. Not for you, for them. Like, if anybody should be able to hold libertarian principle consistently, it shouldn't be somebody that is concerned with the outcomes.
Right.
What? Go ahead.
Well, because I think, like, in practice, the non-aggression principle is works. But I think there's going to be very small fringe examples that are very rare and hardly will ever come by. I'll probably never come by most of them in my life. I'll probably come by like one or two. I might get stranded in a desert somewhere and see a house that I need to break in just to survive, but I'm going to pay you restitution, but it's still a violation of the non-aggression principle to do it. So I still like abide by it as much as I can, you know, unless it's like a life or death situation, or like if I could kill one person to save an entire city from an atom bomb, that might be a situation where I might pull the trigger, but that's probably not going to happen. And it also depends on the city. If it's like Chicago or New York, then yeah, sorry. I'll take the nap position on that one.
Man, that's harsh. And I agree. Do we want to get into this? No, wait, first, I have to ask you a question first, because this is your first time on Anarchast. Jim Jesus, how did you become an anarchist?
Funny you should ask, because I actually put a record up there, "Bedtime for Democracy" by a little band called the Dead Kennedys. I was really into ska, but if you went to ska shows in the 90s, you were also presented with punk bands, because punk bands would open for them, or ska bands would open for punk bands, and so there was a lot of crossover. So I got really into punk as well, and I got really into the Dead Kennedys, and there was the lead singer, Jello Biafra, after he left the band, was really into spoken word, and it was very political. And so I was really kind of influenced by him. So like a lot of my stuff comes from kind of the punk rock view, but there was something wrong with it. Like there was like, I really agreed with a lot of the social aspects of it, but I disagreed with a lot with the economics, and I couldn't put my finger on why. So I just kind of went along with it up until the point I saw Penn and Teller when they did a little show called Bull's Hit. I don't know if we can cuss on here.
Yeah, that's fine. We're several minutes in. We can cuss without getting tore up by YouTube too bad.
And every other episode that they were doing was something that I agreed with, and then the other episode would be something I thought I disagreed with, and by the end of the show, I was like, oh my gosh, they were right. So they did one they did one on the Bible and why that was wrong. And I was like, okay, yeah, I agree with that. The show must be like a bunch of liberals. And then the next one would be like gun control. And I was like, wait a minute, you're against gun control? Like, why? Guns are bad, right? And then like by the end of the episode, I was like, turn. So by the end of the show, like, you know, by the end of the first couple of seasons, I had already been like, okay, I need to know more about this libertarian thing. Became a libertarian, got involved with the LP because I was an anarchist and I was making fun of anarchists because you don't know anything. Then I read a little book called The Libertarian Manifesto, which I thought would be like a manifesto for like a good case for small government. But it was by Murray Rothbard, and I didn't know who he was. And I listened to the audiobook getting on a train to go visit my friends in California. And by the time I got off the train, I was like, fuck, I'm an anarchist.
Wow. What was that?
Tricked me into becoming an anarchist. Rothbard was very tricky.
I love talking to people about that moment, because like for me, at least, when I had that moment, I remember it specifically. I was on a plane and I had just read Lysander Spooner, and I was like, wait. I agree with this. Wait. Does that mean I'm the A word? Hold on. That means I'm crazy, right? Like, I remember like looking around. I remember like looking around on the plane and being like, why does no one else know this stuff that I just read?
Yeah.
Like, this is so obvious. It's a wild moment.
I was more upset because I used to make fun of anarchists, and I got tricked into becoming an anarchist. And so I was just kind of like, God damn it, I'm an anarchist. Then I started reading more like, like David Friedman, and I fall into more of his camp than I do like Rothbard now, but still a good read. I still recommend it.
Okay. So I think you just made a case for the Libertarian Party.
Well, I wasn't that involved in the Libertarian Party. I was more involved in the Green Party when I was a Green than I did the Libertarian Party as a Libertarian. So, to be fair,
yeah, but still, it was a doormat in the entryway of something that got you to read Rothbard. So,
I think that if there was some other group called Libertarian something, that would have worked as well. It was just that the Libertarian Party was holding up the banner of being Libertarian, and at the time they were. At this point, it was like Michael Badnarik, and it was less Gary Johnson. So it was actually a little bit more libertarian back in those days. And when they nominated Bob Barr, I was like, I'm gone. Sorry. I'm out. We're out.
So I consider Jim a good friend of mine. I've known you for a while, and I'm trying to communicate this to people because we talked in in a show that you haven't seen yet. That's in the bag and we're going to publish soon, about a little bit about some of the drama going on with Walter Block on Twitter, and about the Israel-Palestine conflict, and about Hoppe. And we talked briefly about like libertarian infighting and disagreeing with other libertarians, and how to do that in a healthy way instead of like a toxic, destructive way. And one of the things that me knowing you taught me is that it's okay to give other people space to be wrong in your opinion, and you can still sort of be friends with them and work towards liberty within margins of sanity, I guess. What do you think about that?
Well, it didn't start off that way. I started off being a lot more hostile, and
me too.
So yeah, like when I started finding out about Molyneux and like Kokesh, and I was far more hostile, and a lot of people started taking that idea from me and kind of running with it and making things into a monster that I couldn't control. Where the idea I wanted libertarians to do, and so why I was so hard on Molyneux and Kokesh and those sorts of people, was not because they deserved it. I mean, they kind of did, but it was more that I wanted libertarians to be a little bit more comfortable being critical of their own party and not be such, in such uniformity. And what ended up happening was people didn't take that as the lesson. They took that as a lesson of I can get more attention if I'm just crap talking other libertarians. And so I take full responsibility of people like the Fakertarians. I take full responsibility. Their idea, they just stole from me and just ruined it. I'm sorry. And so I've been trying to be a little bit more mindful of like, how do I
That's your fault?
The libertarians? I didn't
Fakertarians is your fault?
They stole
I'm
that idea
rethinking
from
our
me
friendship
and ruined
now.
it. I take full response. Like that is a cross that I bear, and I hate it. I hate that.
Ugh.
Like that's the attitude that I accidentally brought into libertarianism. So now I'm being a little bit more mindful of like, how am I criticizing libertarians, and a little bit more the idea rather than the individual, unless I think the individual is just so caustic, where they're actually like a cult leader or nothing but a fraudster. Then I'll go after them like that. But when I'm just like I have lots of disagreements with a lot of libertarians that I don't really like. You're the bad person. I'm just more like, your ideas are bad and you should change them. That's where I try to come at it now for most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly have my moments. I'm human, and I'm too harsh. Maybe that's a bad word. I come off wrong sometimes still, for sure. But yeah, I consider somebody criticizing my ideas like a mark of high respect. Like if somebody takes time out of their existence to think about my positions and tell me where they think I'm wrong, that's a favor. I appreciate that. And they're doing me a favor. They're doing me a courtesy and a kindness and a respect. And so I try and take that when people give it to me in that frame of mind. And I also try and do that for other people. as also a sign of respect. So like Walter Block, I don't want to get fully into it because we're gonna have him on the show soon, but
I just started hearing like rumblings about this. I've been out of the loop at that whole situation. I kind of like skimmed through Hoppa's article on it, and I was like, "Oh, I have not seen Walter talk about this stuff. This is going to be fun to watch this fight brew."
There's so many. There's a new example every month on Twitter of libertarian figureheads clashing over things. Like you could do Dave Smith's terrible border takes, and like whatever. So like the example could be anything, but I can say like Dave Smith's got a lot of stuff right. He's one of the best speakers of libertarian principle on the planet. Walter Block, same thing, man. He's written some really cool books with some really fun and entertaining concepts around libertarian principle. He's awesome. I disagree with him on some of the edge cases around rape, evictionism, or whatever. And we can have those healthy disagreements. And I have talked to him and had those disagreements. And you know what? After it's over, like we're all still fine. we're all still okay, and we can all be friends after a disagreement. I'm
a little bit more lenient on things like immigration and abortion because I think those are the two kind of things that libertarians are constantly infighting about. So I'm a little bit more lenient about those things. When it comes to other things like, like that's when I start getting a little bit weird. That's when I'm starting to go like, okay, something's wrong here that you're, defending cops or something like that. But yeah, the immigration thing, I think that just needs to be hashed out logically, and there's still going to be people who disagree with that, and I'm fine with that. I'm still friendly with a lot of kind of bordertarian types, and baby murderers, libertarians, I guess. I'm still kind of friendly with them, but I think those are the ones that are like I have a little bit more lenient for, because those are the two kind of hot, third rails in libertarianism for the most part. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, the only ones I have trouble with are the super outspoken ones. Like I can think of one or two that are just like the baby murder topic is just all they talk about all the time, and I'm like, okay, this is weird.
Same with bordertarians, where that's all they talk about is, demographics and stuff. I mean, like demographics matter. Yeah. I understand that, but if that's all you talk about, there's something underlying that, I think. It's kind of scary.
It's hard not to think about that. Yeah. Okay, so I briefly want to let's briefly go over consequentialism, and you specifically call yourself, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, a rule consequentialist. Can you tell us what that means in a libertarian context?
I wouldn't call myself a rule libertarian. I think a lot of people would. But basically I have, so utilitarians, which this is not true, by the way, but they're viewed as people who just want the thing. They want the ethics to be what produces the best outcome, full stop. And that's when you get a lot of really gray areas, because at the end of the day, you still need some sort of like guiding principle, right? So what is good? Like, how do you define good? And so I kind of define good, and this is why consequentialism is a little bit different in that respect, even though, again, I'm kind of strawmanning utilitarianism here. But consequentialism usually starts out with, I have a bunch of rules that I want to like, that I determine to be what's good. Like, I like the idea of something like the non-aggression principle, and I want that to be the thing. But I know there's going to be like very fringe elements, fringe edge cases, right? Where like the trolley problem or something like that, where I think that the outcomes possibly might be better. Like killing one person to save five, that might be that possibly could be bad. But pulling the lever to save an entire city, that's not New York or Los Angeles or or New York. That might be willing. I might be willing to pull the lever to save that. And if it was Dallas, everybody got that. Dallas or maybe Austin. I'll think about it. Make my Christmas card list, and then we'll talk about it.
Well, okay. So, I mean, that's actually a really good way for me to pose my question to you on it, or my challenge is like, where's the line specifically? What's the ratio of commie to normal person where
I think it all comes down to
murder
intuition.
Someone over it?
I think it all comes down to just kind of intuition, like how you feel about it at the time. But again, like these are very fringe edge cases, and I would have to be put in a situation like that to kind of weigh it. At the end of the day, like the non-aggression principle, it's pretty good rule of thumb that's going to fit with 99.9999999% of cases. Am I going to be in a situation where I'm going to be able to save a city by killing a single person? Probably not. But if that does happen, that's going to be something I'm going to have to bear at the time, and it's also going to be a weight on my soul the entire time that I murdered someone. Sure, it's to save an entire city of people, but I ended up having to murder someone, so that's gonna be holding me down for the rest of my life. Is that going to be worth it? That's going to be worth the trade-off. That's something that I have to consider at the time. I don't know what the trade-off is. It's going to be something that I have to eternally figure out.
Isn't that non-responsive though? Doesn't that just mean you're gonna just go with your feeling at the time? Like half a city, quarter of a city, 1,000 people, 100 people.
Well,
like, where's the line?
Half the time, I mean, I'm probably never going to experience a situation like that. The situations that I think is going to be more applicable is if I'm in a desert and I'm starving and I see a house that no one's at, and I see canned food inside in this phone, and water. I'm probably going to break in and then pay restitution to the homeowner who I infringed on, but I shouldn't have broken in the first place, right? I think those are the kind of scenarios.
I think that's a bad example of your position, because I would also break in for the water and the phone, because I would expect that most people would consent to me breaking in to save my life and to call for help in an emergency situation. I know I would consent to somebody breaking in my house to save their life in an emergency desert situation like that. So there's no consent violation. There's no NAP violation. It's fine. Now, if I find out after the fact that, because most people consent. So it is a presumption. And if I find out after the fact that they didn't, then I am guilty of breaking and entering, and I would owe restitution. Absolutely. But
okay, what if I'm a very attractive person? What if I'm like a very conventionally attractive person, and I see another very conventionally attractive person, like, and I'm just going to have sex with them while they're passed out, because they would consent, right? Because we're both very attractive. That's kind of the same.
You think argument. That's an analogy, really, Jim? It is an analogy. Well, you think sleep sex is an analogy to desert?
Neither got consent.
Water.
Neither got consent. Neither got consent.
Oh, come on. But no, the disanalogy is the presumption of consent isn't there for the sex, and it would be for drinking someone's water.
I don't think so. I don't know. I think a lot of people would rather. Most people, normies, would probably rather be whole. I would. I'd be fine with that, so long as
I've never asked somebody this question and gotten somebody that said, no, I want them to die instead of drink my water.
Well, we should pull them out. We should pull it.
so drop a note in the comments. If you are one of the, let us know either way. If you're one of the people that, like, look, you came home, you noticed that your window was broken and a bottle of water was missing. And maybe there was a note there saying, hey, sorry, I was dying. Here's my number, and I can, help you pay to repair your window and replace the water. If you would consent to that or not. No. Everyone I know would. In fact, if somebody wouldn't, I would maybe not.
I know a lot of Californians are dealing with this right now, though. I will say that a lot of Californians are dealing with this scenario right now. A lot of people's cars are getting broken into because they need,
and there was that one moron.
But they're Aladdins. Patrick, they're Aladdins. They're just trying to feed their family with Maybelline. Okay.
There was that one moron. It was an actor, and his car got broken into, and they asked him about it, and he said something like, "Well, I think so." And he said some just moronic stuff, something like, "Well, I'm not too upset about it because he probably needed the stuff more than me," or something.
Yeah.
Okay, bro. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right.
But
cool.
It doesn't feel like that now.
The last time I talked to you on the podcast, you called yourself a Satanist, and now you are no longer a Satanist. So I would like to hear, give us like a quick description of what you used to be, and then why you're no longer.
All right, so right now I kind of consider myself like a pseudo-Catholic. Like, I pretty much do everything a Catholic does, except for, go to mass or something like that. But I have like a crucifix in my house, and I pretend all that stuff. But I don't believe in God or anything like that. It's more just because the kind of
what am I hearing right now? Okay, hold on. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I don't subscribe to the morality or anything like that. It's all aesthetic. It's just all aesthetic. But the problem is that Satanism has bad PR intentionally. Satanism has always had this kind of stance of, we're not evangelical. We're not here to convince you to change your mind. In fact, we don't want you involved with us at all. And if you do stumble on it, maybe great. I don't know. We'll see how cool you are. That was kind of the attitude. And then you had a group called the Satanic Temple, who were a bunch of con men, frauds. They started out as a group saying, oh, yeah, we're like the yes men, but kind of a little bit more around religious topics and kind of going after the kind of religious right kind of sentiment that was popular with Bush at the time, Bush Jr. And so they were kind of doing like publicity stunts. And then when it came time to like paying taxes, they were like, oh, no, we're actually a real religion. They scrubbed all of the stuff on there talking about how they actually worship Satan. And then they tried to pretend they were a little bit more like actual Satanism. But if you go back to the Wayback Machine and look at their websites, you can actually see like it's all just a shtick. It's all just a show. But when it came time to be filing for tax exemption under religious status, then they started pretending they were an actual religion. And these groups have been going around, the Satanic Temple types have been going around, excuse me. They've been like protesting for like trans children and, you know, abortion and that sort of thing. And it just got to be a little bit too much. And anytime I mentioned that I was a Satanist, the kind of sentiment that people would throw at me is like, oh, you support these people who are doing this trans kids thing or this, you know, pro-abortion thing or something like that. And the tides right now in America are starting to turn a little bit more against that sort of thing, almost violently so. And I think that's going to be the future. Is going to be a little more violently. Like people are starting to be like religion is starting to have like a comeback tour. After the rational, after being destroyed by the rational response kind of rational response squad type of atheism and the great debate stuff on YouTube and Thunderfoot and all that stuff. Now the religious people are coming back and they're realizing that the kind of Venom Fang X thing wasn't working right. And so now we're going to do the Tradcath thing. and so I'm kind of being like, okay, I'm going to hold this cross, like, just don't hurt me. But I think that's like the Satanism has a lot of important lessons that a lot of people can take away, especially like not hurting kids. It's the number one thing. Please, fake Satanists, take that away, please. Or take that good advice towards you. I mean, and a lot of people just kind of ignoring that. And it's kind of like, it's scary, especially after moving to Texas. It's kind of scary now. So yeah, I'm a fake Catholic now.
Okay, so I was with you until the fake Catholic. Why? Is it for fun? Is it a troll? Or are you serious?
No. I think Catholics are awesome. I'm not going to lie. I think Catholics are awesome. I like hanging out with them.
There's some really cool Catholics. There are some really cool Catholics. There's some good, devout, religious people that are great people, fun to know, good to hang out with, and also very superstitious. So, like, why do you need to fake to be one instead of just being friends with them?
I'm in a very Catholic town, so I have to mind my P's and Q's around here.
Oh, really?
No, but in all sense, yeah. So in all sense, like if I was like to describe my actual religion, it's probably going to be something like Mephiest. Like I worship my cat. That's about it. And I kind of take away a lot of the lessons that I learned from Satanism. I thought a lot of that stuff was pretty good. I just kind of dropped the aesthetics that piss a lot of people off, especially right now, because I think that's kind of dangerous.
What's the top 3 best things or takeaways from Satanism that most people might not be aware of?
Dealing with psychic vampires. I think that was the most important thing because I had a lot of people who were psychic vampires. For those of you who don't know, they're the type of people who will do like small little tiny, almost meaningless like gestures to you. Like they'll get something from like a coin machine, like a little stupid toy, and they'll give it to you. And then they'll demand something high in return. Like, oh, I want you to drop me off at the airport, you know. And then if you say like, well, I can't. Oh, come on, man. I gave you that thing, you know, like whatever. And they'll use that against you. They're basically being a psychic vampire. They're sucking this, you know, the life force out of you. There's also a great show called, actually, I haven't seen the show. I've seen the movie. The movie was great, but in the show, there's a guy who's an actual psychic vampire who just like sucks the life out of everybody in the office that he works at. And you can see some of the stuff that he does. Like I've seen clips of it, and I thought that was pretty funny. The movie was great. What We Do in the Shadows is fantastic.
Is that the comedy with a bunch of vampires?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the werewolves, and they were fighting with yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But in the show, there was actual psychic vampires. I think that'd be one. A lot of the moral lessons that come out of it, like, you know, don't preach at people, don't harm children, that sort of thing. I think those are really valuable lessons.
And most people would not think that kind of wisdom could come from a thing associated with Satan. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it just comes from Ayn Rand anyway. Rand and Epicurus and Max Stirner and that sort of thing. So
for sure. Okay, so let's put the meat in the middle of the sandwich and talk about your criticisms of Bitcoin. You did a video recently. You came up with six or eight reasons that, and the title of the video was Bitcoin isn't a currency.
I don't think it'll ever be a currency. Let me actually pull up my 6 reasons so that way I don't skip any of them.
Oh, I have them. I have them written down, and I have thoughts.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Fantastic.
So with our, I'm prepared. So, with our other guest that I had that was very pro Bitcoin, I prepared in the opposite direction. I hit him with a lot of the criticisms of that some stuff that maybe I didn't even see in your list, actually. Fundamental core problems with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as it stands. And so now I'm going to try and do the other. I'm going to try and be the optimist and try and push you in the other direction that I did for this guy.
You're being a devil's advocate in both directions. Nice.
Like a Satanist.
Right,
no,
coming off the heels of a Satanist. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Okay, so your first reason was that Bitcoin. So your video, let's start with this. Your video says Bitcoin isn't a cryptocurrency, and your criticisms were all about Bitcoin. Now, was that for SEO? Like you wanted people to click on the video because you were addressing the most popular cryptocurrency? Or were you actually talking specifically only about that one cryptocurrency?
I'm talking about cryptocurrencies in general. There are examples of cryptocurrency where I do think there is end uses, and I mentioned them. I think the big one I keep pointing to over and over again was Library Odysee, because that's the one I like. But I think that the end use case is so, like, it's almost trivial that I don't think that would still be stable enough to be an actual currency. Because I don't think most people want to upload content to like a website like YouTube, let alone a smaller YouTube competitor like Odysee. I think that's a very fringe use case, a very trivial use case. But it comes in the cryptocurrency in general, that there's no real end use cases that's non-trivial. And because of that, it's going to be an endless bubble. That was my argument, at least at the very end. My first criticism was that it was shady as fuck.
Okay, hold on.
but anyways, yeah.
Okay, so
but it goes with pretty much all crypto.
So 2 questions. Number one was the only one you like was the Library Odysee.
At least the one that I like now. I mean, there's other ones I think that have some interesting, like Zen, but I don't think Zen does that anymore. I didn't feel like looking it up because I don't care enough. But I remember Zen. They were talking about an idea. I don't know if it ever went through, but having like encrypted messages, like you paid to have like an encrypted message, and it's on kind of like the encryption of the blockchain or whatever. So it's really vastly encrypted or something like that. And if you're doing something that's shady or you don't want the governments to know, I think that could be useful to you. But how many people need that sort of level of encryption for? Yeah,
Session is a signal. Session is like a signal alternative that's decentralized and is backed by a cryptocurrency. So it's kind of like the signal messenger, but with crypto. Okay. So only the coins that have like actual utility in that regard you would care about. And so not even Monero.
Yeah. So I think Monero is useful in that, like, if you're, again, doing something that you probably shouldn't, according to the government, I think that's probably helpful that, this is not going to be able to be linked back to you because the whole blockchain is encrypted. I think that's helpful. But at the end of the day, when it comes to actually being a currency, it's still going to be unstable, and its stability would cause it to be unstable. And therefore a bubble. But if you're just going to buy Monero to buy drugs, I mean, then it's probably great, but I don't, so it's not useful to me.
Well, you can also like get paid in Monero, and now you don't have a record of being paid, things like that. Anyway,
it'd be really illegal, and the government would find a way to crack down on you because they're clever.
But it's a utility, and it's one that Bitcoin doesn't have. Unless you jump through a lot of hoops, which you mentioned.
It's a very trivial utility, and there's no end use case for it, and that's what really would bring it.
You cannot say private money is trivial utility.
No, the use of it being that is trivial. I think most people see it as a speculative investment and not a currency.
You think people see Monero as a speculative investment?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I would
Most
disagree.
people.
I think Monero is maybe the only one that people don't see as a speculative investment, and that they only see it as a utility. And I think that's why its price is low. It's in the 150, 160 range. It's small, it's fungible, it's private. Like I don't see people
XMR,
hodling.
right?
XMR, yeah. I don't see I don't see the hodl bros nearly as much in XMR as other.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit more stable, but it's still. I'm looking at the charts. It is kind of bouncing anywhere from 130 to 170. It's still kind of bouncing around a lot, but it seems to be a lot less volatile than Bitcoin. But I still think that volatility is still really not helpful for a currency to be a currency, especially if you're doing like some sort of long-term investment as an entrepreneur, or if you're an employee trying to get a job somewhere and they're going to say, oh, we're going to pay you in like 5 Monero a week or something. It's like, well, what is 5 Monero a month from now? I don't know. Is it going to pay my rent, or am I going to be in the poorhouse?
Yeah,
it's a little bit more stable than Bitcoin, but it's still sketchy.
Yeah, I mean, like I could tell a story that totally didn't happen in any
of
universe.
Course, I would never expect it to happen.
You know, in this other universe, I was paid for a job for 2 years, and a portion of it was a large portion was in Monero, and I left. I mean, in this other universe, I may have left it in Monero, and you know, it's down 20-something% from approximately on average from what it was paid to me in. But it's also like,
oh wow.
In this other universe, it's off the record. You know, it's special money.
Yeah.
which is worth something. Like, that's my point. Like, even taking that loss
years
ago.
Something. I'm looking at a couple of years ago, it was up to like 500 almost. It was bouncing around in like 300. Yeah, it's still very volatile. Was that about the time this?
No, it was after that. No,
happened.
It was,
okay.
No, yeah, in this other universe, it was like a little under 200 or whatever. So,
yeah. So it seems as though like Monero, maybe if more people believe that it's a currency, it's going to be a little bit more stable. But there's still looks like there's still a lot of speculative investment that's causing the price to kind of bounce around.
The only thing I will say is that I think it is the most used for utility. Like, it's the most used actual currency out of all cryptocurrencies. And I'm sure some nerd is going to be in the comments right now with some spreadsheets to prove me wrong. But I'm really confident that it's at least one of the top, if not the top, most actually used currencies.
So what is the end use for Monero?
Private transactions.
Oh, well, it can't. I mean, an end use is not a transaction. It can't, by definition, it can't be an end use. So let's say if I have like say gold, understand. Right?
Yeah.
So gold has an end use. At some point, someone's going to put it in their mouth. Somebody's going to put it in a computer. Somebody's going to put it in jewelry. And that's like the end use for it. Sure, you can recycle it, but that's like the end use for it. Fiat money, the end use is paying your taxes. Otherwise, you go to jail. There's every kind of currency. The silver, same thing. Like, used in medical stuff like that. It's antibacterial or something like that. It's also used in electronics as well. If there's an end use that those things are, and because of that, even if the speculative investment for gold and silver were to disappear tomorrow, there's still a value in the fact that people will use it for jewelry and dentistry and that sort of thing, right? With Monero and crypto and stuff like that, in like library, you can use it to promote your content or upload content to the service. But what is Monero's end use for it?
Well, it's a technology. Well, I have two things to say. Number one, like, I think you're taking like an essentialist position of the purpose of a thing, which is like you're projecting a purpose onto something. So if the only thing I plan to do with a bar of gold is to buy something with it, then that is its end goal for me.
Right.
I don't think you can argue for sort of like a universal nature or purpose, essentialist purpose of a thing. So like in that same way, I would say Monero, its end use is to spend it more than any other currency.
Right, but again, that can't be by definition. That can't be the end use, because the whole point of currency is to trade, right? But at some point, that currency has to be used for something other than being traded for something else, right?
Why?
So
Take gold as an example. Like, so say it gets made into a circuit board or to a piece of jewelry. Eventually, 30 years later, it's probably going to get melted down, recycled, and it could turn into currency again. It could be used for something new again. It's not going to have an end state ever where it's like, okay, this is the final resting place of these gold
but that
atoms.
is the demand. But that is the majority demand for what people want that gold and silver to be. If you look at what most people don't use it for trading, most people don't use it for speculative investment. I think it's like a 30% pie or something like that. Even a lot of bullion, a lot of used people like to have just bullion because it looks cool. It's very shiny. Like I have a lot of silver. Like I have silver pieces right here. And I think they look cool. And the only reason why I have them is because I think they look cool. This is a Liberty dollar. Do you remember these?
I do remember that. I'm looking for mine.
We should talk about that.
Well,
I think they look cool.
Oh, look, I have one too. Look, we're going to share our silver.
And here's one I'm never getting rid of. I'm going to die with it. Oh, is that a Liberty dollar?
It says Liberty on it, but that doesn't mean it's a Liberty dollar. No, it's just... It's got a buffalo on it. I don't think this is a Liberty dollar.
This one is super rare because they only had one shipment out, and then the FBI raided the Liberty. I wonder if I can. It's not gonna. This is a Ron Paul 2008 one, and they got raided like right after they sent out the first shipment of those. So this one's kind of rare. The even more rare one are the copper ones.
They get raided for competing with the government for currency.
No, they actually got busted for. Come on. Let's face it. Let's be real. Maybe not the Ron Paul one, not the Ron Paul one. But for most people, if they look at that like at a glance, that looks like official U.S. currency. It's got the Statue of Liberty. It says Liberty.
Oh, they got them for counterfeiting or something.
Yeah. It says trust in God instead of. At first glance, if I looked at this, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's a real piece. And if you go and, I know I sent you a clip. I don't know if you can play clips on this. But I sent you a clip of the Liberty dollar thing. And so how you're supposed to spend Liberty dollars before we play it, how you're supposed to spend Liberty dollars is you go to a store and you say, okay, I have $20 in cash, or I have this piece of silver. It's not currency. It's not anything like that, but or it's not official US currency, but I'm willing to trade this with you, or you can have the actual money. That's what you're supposed to do. And if you actually look at the clip of him doing that, he does not do it. He presents it as this is a new $20 piece or whatever.
Okay, what was
that was actually used as evidence against him.
515 to 606.
I think it was like 515. Yeah.
All right, give me a second. I will pull this up. 515.
If they were ever deposited here, would not be recognized and given credit for.
The Liberty dollar can only be used if a business or individual is willing to accept it. So what happens when you take it to the street?
Oh yeah, hi. I'd like to have 2 turkey and Swiss and 1 ham and Swiss. I have a $10 silver. What is this? It's the new $10 silver piece.
It's the new $10 silver piece. Ooh.
Hold on, I'm trying to see what this is.
Yeah, that is illegal.
Just like that.
And it's flawed.
Used every day throughout America. Washington,
The
District of Criminals. Okay.
They does it again.
Now I have the paper money, but I have a new silver $10 piece.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A new.
Whoa. What do you think? Looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You have a nice day.
Oh, absolutely.
And as much as I don't like Federal Reserve notes, and I like the idea of a Liberty dollar, even though maybe not this particular one, that's actually fraud. It's because you're kind of playing it off as like, this is, you can actually pay your taxes in this, and you can't. You can actually go to the store next door and pay it. You can't.
That did feel kind of fraudy.
Yeah, it did.
Oh, man.
That's why it got busted. And a lot of people were pointing, which I got these. These are actually kind of technically illegal to sell, but I bought them on eBay like not too long ago, and I was like, I need to, because I used all of mine. And I did it right. I was like, this is not the official U.S. currency, but it is real silver. Do you want to trade for it? And a lot of people did. So I don't have my original ones when they were still around, except for the Ron Paul one, which I'm never getting rid of. But a lot of people were using the Liberty dollar as like this is what happens if, you have a centralized alternative currency. And that's not the case, because Peter Schiff has been doing like his alternate currency for a while. He has his own silver currency that you can trade. And there was also another one where it had a QR code where you can scan it. It would tell you the spot price for silver at the moment. There's all kinds of stuff like that where that's completely legal and no one's ever been busted for that.
Okay. So it's sketchy. Cryptocurrency or Bitcoin is sketchy. Why is it sketchy?
Yeah. Well, let's go over some of the people that I mentioned: Mt. Gox, Quadriga, Three Arrows Capital, Celsius Network, Holdnot, Vald, FTX. A lot of these companies just come in. Nobody's really skeptical about who runs these. Tether. And a lot of times when you Google search like who these people are, they usually have like histories of sex trafficking or fraud or counterfeiting and that sort of thing. Or counterfeiting like software. I think Tether, like the guy who ran it, was a plastic surgeon who was arrested for counterfeiting Microsoft license keys to businesses and not telling them. Like, I'd be fine with it. It was like, oh yeah, this is not legitimate, but don't worry. But he was like passing them off as like their legitimate certificates for Microsoft. A lot of like, if you like go through a lot of these people's history, they raise some giant flags, but no one bats an eye, because if you are someone who's making strides in the crypto space, you're not just like some person who's doing good business. You're like the person who is saving the world from the evils of the Federal Reserve and the global banking system. And a lot of people are not critical of this, and it just allows scammers to go through like crazy, and people love scamming people. And there's a big industry about it. And there was a running gag through my video where and the idea was like my video was hacked by this sex robot who was actually a pig slaughterer, which I don't know if you're familiar with pig slaughter scams. But they kind of get on Telegram and they pretend to be a cute Asian woman, and kind of they'll spend months with you, just talking to you and just being your friend, and like it starts getting a little bit more romantic, and then they kind of be like, oh yeah, like I bought this watch for 50 grand. That's not too bad, is it? Oh, you don't think it is? Well, maybe I should teach you how to make them enough money where you think this is affordable. Just download this app, and then we'll get you on the Bitcoin train and get you rich.
So I think a lot of
those scams.
Part of the sketchiness, though, like you just said, you said it. It feeds right into the more culty aspects of the technology, which is where people overlook potentially bad figures and bad projects and scams, and they don't really call each other out like libertarians do all the time.
Oh, you can't. You can't. If you do, that's FUD. Exactly.
Yeah. Can you talk about the cult aspects that you identified? I think
so that was
right on, man.
Yeah, I don't know if you paused the video and saw like the scroll of when I said it was a cult. Okay. It is.
So like
it's not really a cult, but
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, you said you said something called thought-terminating clichés, which I think was a term you taught me several years ago in relation to something else, and I love the term.
I hear you talk about it. I heard you talk about it all the time now.
Yeah, thought-terminating clichés. Yeah, that's an important thing that you built. Tell us what a thought-terminating cliché is, and then maybe give us some examples outside of Bitcoin, and then some good ones in Bitcoin, because this is really important.
When I was really involved in like cult busting and stuff, there was a guy that I used to read by the name of Stephen Hassan, who did a really interesting interview with Joe Rogan, if you go back and look. And a lot of the time they were talking about Molyneux, which was funny. But I was a big fan of him long before I even knew who Molyneux was. And he would talk about this kind of loading of the language or thought terminating cliches of things that people would say to kind of turn off criticism, like, let's just agree to disagree, or, how does that affect you personally? And you'll see a lot of these kind of thought terminating cliches people use, and that's fine. If people just don't want to engage, that's fine. But when sometimes people will use them like in a systematic way in order to get people to stop thinking. And Bitcoiners and crypto bros have like a very long, almost Scientology level of like buzz terms and jargon in order to kind of stop thinking critically about a lot of projects. There's like FOMO, fear of missing out. There's buy the effing dip. There's paper hands, people who don't spend, or who spend, who get scared really easy and dump all the crypto holdings for money. And then you have the diamond hands who hold on, because they're going to stay rich forever. There's going to be like, have fun staying poor, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Anytime anyone criticizes something, they're just spreading FUD. Not going to make it. We're going to make it. All that stuff. Like, you can just use that to hype people up and to dismiss criticism at the same time without actually using a single brain cell in the process other than, bodily functions. And George Orwell talked about this in his book when they were talking a lot about the Newspeak stuff, is that language is coming from here and not from here. Just kind of automatic system response. And that's what a lot of these kind of thought-terminating cliches come about. And if you have ever talked to like a Scientologist, it's hard to or anyone who's been in like a really bizarre weirdo cult with like a lot of jargon, it's hard to even have a conversation with them because they're using a completely different language to the point where they're not even able to understand your criticism because their language is so different. And that's a lot of the things that I'm seeing in cryptocurrency spaces. It's a decentralized cult. So it's hard to say it's a cult because cults need to be like a pyramid structure with people at the top. There's nobody real people at the top. It's very decentralized. But a lot of people still use these things even in non-cults. And it's still something that people need to be kind of hip to and notice that, they're using stuff to prevent them from critically thinking about things. And crypto's no different.
There's examples of this everywhere in every area. Yeah. Let's see. So like from our own side, you'll see people dismiss criticisms of capitalism just by saying, "Okay, commie," like that's a thought terminating cliche. You didn't rebut anything. You didn't. It's a way to make
sent
it
from
sound
an
like
iPhone.
It's a way to make it sound like you responded in the conversation in a triumphant way when you didn't actually do anything. So like, what's another one?
Sent from an iPhone. That was another one. Everyone smashed capitalism written on their iPhones. But it's on an iPhone. Let's just agree to disagree. I think that's the big one. That's that goes everywhere.
I had when you talk about 5 in my head until I needed to say them, and I've lost them all.
Yeah, my favorite one is how does that affect you personly? It's like,
show me on the doll where my argument touched you. Yeah. It's a lot of memes too, are like responses used in this way to just shut down the conversation.
Retard.
Yeah, things like
which
this
I'm guilty of doing, but sometimes I just don't want to argue with stupid ideas. Retard.
Sure. Oh no, I've said okay, commie several times.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we kind of talked about
sometimes they're useful. Like again, like a hammer. If most people tomorrow started using hammers to smash businesses, I wouldn't be against hammers. But there's times where you're just like, I don't want to deal with this. Like when someone comes in my comment section and says Bitcoin is not cryptocurrency, I'm just like, okay, you're not worth my time. Okay, idiot. And I tried to engage with that, and it was just a waste of time.
Probably the most important one to do with cryptocurrency is the FUD one. Like if you present a criticism of the technology and they just say you're spreading FUD,
okay, FUD.
That's a perfect example. Okay, FUD, shut up, FUD. Oh, ignore him. He's just FUDing. These are thought terminating cliches.
It's all FUD.
Not gonna make it. That's another one that's a meme that's popular.
Have fun staying poor.
Have fun staying poor, and like you're not saying anything. Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about currency. We've talked about the culty aspects, sketchiness, hyperinflationary. This was a new thought for me because I'm like, no, Bitcoin is not a hyperinflationary. It's got a cap. Yeah. And then I thought, I was like, yeah, this is just wrong. This is a poor analysis of Bitcoin. In your video, though, you said, well, why don't you tell, like, what did you say about that?
So in theory, Bitcoin has a cap. In practice, it has a cap. It's also in theory that it doesn't have a cap because at some point, it's not going to happen. I really don't believe it's going to happen. But in theory, the core devs could decide, hey, maybe we should increase it to 28 trillion, whatever. And if all of the miners agree, they can put it through and it'll be a thing. Chance that that's not going to happen. What is going to happen, what is happening is that Bitcoin is not the only player in town, and there's a new cryptocurrency coming out like every week. And that's down from a cryptocurrency every minute when Ethereum started allowing people to make their own cryptocurrencies, which I didn't count that in my final count. I didn't count any of the Ethereum cryptocurrencies. I was like, doesn't really count. I was only counting the ones that actually like put forth their own network. And so that's how I got my 10,000. But that's I wanted to be as conservative as possible. There's billions of these pump and dump cryptocurrencies fly by night that are supposed to save the world, and then whatever, or meme coins that there's a meme coin for every meme ever made, and then some, and even forced memes, come rocket. There's Pepe coin, there's Chad coin, and I actually wrote a joke like saying like I'm going to create a Chad coin, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on. After I wrote that, I looked it up. And it was a coin.
Yeah, and, it's almost like that thing where you can be like, you can Google any word and racism and find an article about how whatever that random word you plugged in is racist.
Yeah.
It's almost like Google any word and cryptocurrency and you'll find somebody made a coin for it. Somebody was on Twitter a week ago being like, hey guys, I was thinking about making...
I hate? Shuffles deck.
Somebody was I saw somebody on Twitter being like, hey guys, I'm thinking about making an ANCAP coin. And I was just like, oh, please don't. Please don't. Oh man. Okay, so
there are people who are like,
this was the point I wanted to make.
There are people who are there are people who are like, I only just do in Bitcoin, I only deal in Monero, I only deal with my pet coin, I only deal with Dogecoin. But at the end of the day, most people who are in the cryptocurrency space are looking at the giant pot altogether. And they're trading between those cryptocurrencies, and they're back and forth. They're trying to bounce one up to cash it out to another, and back into Tether, and then back into Bitcoin, and back into Dogecoin, and back into Chad coin, and bouncing it around. That's their trading all day. So, and you can kind of see like most cryptocurrencies kind of go up and down with Bitcoin. Generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, like they kind of follow a curve of Bitcoin.
There's a correlation, and there's graphs or websites that show you how independent different coins are. Monero is one of the most independent ones, by the way. Anyway, so I was trying to prep for ways to challenge you on this, and I thought I had you on this one. I was like, Bitcoin is not hyperinflationary. It's in the code. It has a hard cap, and you can't disagree with me on this. And then I interviewed Raphael, and in the interview, the very pro-Bitcoin person he is mentioned that he heard them talking about potentially lifting the cap on Bitcoin in the interview.
Really? I was wrong.
Somebody
being right.
Somebody is talking about it. I don't know how true. I mean, I don't know how true. I didn't verify it. I don't know, whatever. But and I don't know. It's probably not going to happen. But somebody's talking about it. So my attempt to defeat you is defeated.
He may be an outlier, but I don't think he's completely an outlier. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are in his camp, and I wonder how influential they'll be. Because a lot of people who are into crypto are not libertarians. They don't really care about caps.
Yeah.
Make more coins so I can get some, yeah.
All right. So the last of your criticisms that I think we should talk about is the it sucks.
Yeah.
And you use this meme in the video, which I'm going to read.
You got to do it like the meme thing. Be me.
No, why don't you do it? You do it.
I'm terrible at reading out loud. That's why I had AI do most of it.
It says, be me. Go into a store.
Dyslexia bitch.
Shit is real.
Sorry.
Money is tight. Need essentials. Puts milk, bread, eggs, rum and bologna, and American cheese in basket. Gets generic brands because I just need to get by until the paycheck gets confirmed. Get to cashier. Wait 18 hours. She rings up my stuff. Paper or plastic? 0.005345532 Bitcoin, please. Pull out phone to pay. Sends payment to QR code. Plays 2 whole movies while we wait for transfer to confirm. Transaction fee was twice as much as grocery bill. Hey, Diamond Hands, be happy. In a fiat system, money isn't even real. And then, as a follow-up, I checked this before my recent interview. The current average transaction times for Bitcoin transactions as of January 31st.
Long.
4 hours was average on January 31st. A week before that, it was a day and a half. So,
jeez,
when you make the argument that it sucks, it's really hard to disagree. because I consider the technology, and again, so we're projecting a purpose onto the technology, right? Because the people that would disagree would say, well, it's not meant to be a digital cash, even though the white paper says that.
Yeah, explicitly says that it's a cash transfer system. Yeah.
But I mean, because it's like a decentralized commie tragedy of the commons technology, no one can say the purpose of this technology is this, and we can use that as a measuring stick to make these determinations about where it's failing and where it's succeeding. No, it's a million different things to a million different people. But we can say, for the purpose of being a currency, it's pretty bad. It's like, unless your only thing is you want to slowly move currency across state lines without being able to have your account frozen. If your use case is anything like normal purchasing, or if you're
activity, debanked, or if you're debanked. And by the way, like I think the vast majority of people who I've heard of being debanked, I think there's like one or two that I think are cool people, but for the vast majority of people I found are debanked are just awful, rotten people. That being said, if you support people as bad as Christopher Cantwell is being debanked, you're the bad guy. You're absolutely the bad guy. You're worse than Cantwell is. And for people like him, like his only solution is to trade in things like cryptocurrency. And even not only that, but I believe if you try to send Bitcoin to Christopher Cantwell's account, your account on Coinbase will be banned. That's how like centralized a lot of these cryptocurrency companies are starting, because now they're under the thumb of the federal government. And that's why they demand so much information from you when you start an account or buy stuff. So it's not completely decentralized and free market. Like, yeah,
there's some really cool decentralized exchanges coming up that are really cool. Yeah. There's especially from Monero. There's some really good stuff. I'm doing a pretty terrible job at rebutting some of these because I mean it's just really like when your transaction time is a day and a half, it's really hard to come up with a counter argument for that.
And Monero right now, I think Monero is actually pretty good in terms of transaction times.
Yeah, it's like 14 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, but what is it going to look like if it scales up to run like just even like the state of Texas? Like if that's the default, if that's the reserve currency of Texas.
Oh, no, it's still 14 minutes. So they have dynamic block sizes, so they can throughput as many as there are, and it'll always be. The reason why it's 14 minutes is because the wallet limits you to being able to spend coins that are a certain number of blocks old. So when you spend coin, your wallet's basically locked for 14 minutes. You can't spend. And anyway, yeah, it's basically Monero has dynamic block sizes. It's what they should have done to Bitcoin a long time ago, where the more transactions there are, the bigger the blocks are. But I'm
going to defend Bitcoin here. I'm going to defend Bitcoin here because I think Bitcoin needs to be open and transparent and shitty and terrible. And a lot of the other cryptocurrencies try to just copy and paste that code, but it needs to be that way because that's the first one. And that's the one that everybody looks at in terms of like their criticism. So something like if Monero came out first, it would be, everybody would hate it because no one would be sure if like transfers actually went through because there's no way to check to see if they're through or they go through. And this currency is this technology is so new that most people could look at it and just be like, I can't see any information about it. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if I transfer stuff, if it's going to go through the other way. But Bitcoin was the first one. Everything was open and they could see. And so that now people had that trust in the system that, okay, this blockchain thing actually works. Now we can make a private version. Okay. But I think you would need to have something like Bitcoin first. So it needs to be the shitty example for other people to improve on it, so to speak. Yeah.
I just want people to understand technology. Like it's a technology almost more than it is money. And technology, if you don't iterate, you die. And it's still very near to version 1. And I want people to wake up and be careful with their money, because when the world realizes that Bitcoin is still effectively version 1, the value is probably not going to stay the same. But I'm not a financial advisor, so don't listen to me. So
yeah. Don't.
I'm doing a really bad job at defending cryptocurrency to you, so I'm sorry.
Can we please agree that Ethereum is the bad guy in the room, the worst? Like that's the one where I can be like, here, take this NFT. It's so cool, and then as soon as you like open it, like your wallet's drained.
That's not Ethereum.
Because it has like all the smart.
Like Ethereum, if anything, has the utility that you're looking for, because you can you can write code on Ethereum to actually do useful things. So like that's to its benefit, right?
Yeah, but then it just opens the door for scams because everybody's like scamming the hell out of each other in the cryptocurrency space. So
Well, I mean, that's all technology is new avenues for scams.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else you want to say about Bitcoin besides go watch his video on Bitcoin?
Yeah, like I like this. Not to say like here's the thing. Like I'm even though I'm shitting on cryptocurrency as being a good currency, like there is some use cases for it. Like I said, I love Odysee. I think that's great. If people are trying to buy drugs and they want to be protected from state violence, then Monero is probably a good option for you. If you're looking to help people out of third world countries, try to transfer money to them so they can get out of the country and escape brutal regimes like Venezuela, then that's probably a good way to transfer value to them. But in terms of it being like a currency, like I'm going to go to the store and buy stuff, crypto is not there for that. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be there for that. And every attempt that it tries to be there for that, it starts to be a little bit like weird, like the Lightning Network. It seems like that's pretty vulnerable to attacks and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah.
Have fun staying poor, Jim. All right.
I am. I'm actually making more money as a critic of Bitcoin than I ever did as a fan. I will say that. How do you think I was able to afford Springbank?
What is it? What did you afford?
Springbank.
What is it?
Springbank. Springbank 10.
Whiskey? What is it?
Yeah. Scotch.
Oh, fancy pants. All right. So there's two things. Yeah, there's two things left on my list of things I want to talk to you about. One is probably going to piss some people off, and I don't even know what I'm going to think about it yet. And the other one's, I think, it's just going to be cool and informative. Let's talk about agorism, Jim.
Oh,
what are your thoughts on agorism?
I think agorism is a great way to help people buy illegal products and gray market products at affordable prices in a safe area. And that's the start and end of it. It's not going to stop the state. It's not going to help stop the state. It's not going to bring anarchy in our lifetime. That's it. And a lot of people put a lot of investment in that, and they think that's the only way because in fact, I need to clarify. Agorism is the philosophy that a tactic called counter-economics is the only and most libertarian way to bring libertarianism in our lifetime. All other ways of trying to bring libertarianism is wrong and unlibertarian. That's the ideology of agorism. Counter-economics, I think, has a good use of making sure that if I go to the store or if I go to the gray market store, black market store to buy drugs, I'm probably going to have a better time dealing with someone who is an agorist than I would with someone who's just, a terrible drug cartel, awful person, random drug dealer off the street. So in that sense, I think that agorism or counter economics is kind of good. It makes gray and black markets more safe from frauds and scammers because I'd rather trust a libertarian than whatever, even though libertarians can be scammers too. That's another point. But most of all, but in terms of bringing down the state, it's never brought down the state. It's never gotten anything closer to bringing down the state. And if anything, it probably helps states exist longer. That's what it did in the Soviet Union. It made the Soviet Union last a little bit longer than it did. But at the same time, made the quality of life better for the people who were in that situation. If it wasn't there, they probably would have had a worse time and probably died. Even though communism,
we got to slow down. We got to slow down and go a piece at a time because you said a lot. Okay. All right. So if a group of people get together and they trade goods and services amongst themselves onto the table, they don't. The transactions aren't taxed. They're off. The government doesn't know about them. The government doesn't benefit from them through taxation or whatever. They're providing goods and services and trade. Outside of the system that businesses that are, let's say, quote unquote, legitimate, have to deal with regulations and things like that. But these agorists can outcompete them. This does reduce the state's, the state does experience reduced support and benefit to the degree that these systems are in place. So the government gets less tax money is one very probably obvious example of what happens when agorism is happening. So if the state is getting less tax money, how is that not reducing the state? How is that not fighting the state?
Well, I mean, you can only go so far with it, right? You can't have a facility that's building like laptops, from oil and natural minerals. Once you start getting to the scale of what you would need to in order to make like silicon processors or to refine oil, you need a lot of land that's going to be very obvious. You need a lot of land that's very obvious to
was that the
satellites
whiskey?
And
oh, okay.
No, that was my accent lighting. But you're only going to go so far with it. The types of taxes that it kind of withholds is very small. Even if everybody's doing it, it's still going to be very small. At the end of the day, you're still going to need laptops and oil and cars and big things that need longer chains of development in order to, or things in the economy that takes multiple like layers and steps along the way in order to create. Forget the term for it. I put it in my video. Anyways, yeah. So things that have longer production times, those things are going to be not going to be in there. Drugs, yeah. Food, yeah. That's going to be there. But when it comes to things that a lot of people need, like cars and stuff like that, I'm getting trailing off here.
so it's not inaccurate to say that it's a limited way to fight the state.
Yeah, it's very limited. I don't think it's going to bring anarchy in our lifetime because there's only so far you can go. There's an upper limit to how far you can go in agorism.
Okay, maybe I'm unaware. Are there people that think agorism will bring anarchy in our lifetime?
That is the definition of agorism.
I wasn't aware of people thinking that. That's new to me.
So you got to separate. Agorism is the ideology that counter-economics is not only the most libertarian way to bring libertarianism in our lifetime, it's the only way. Counter-economics is people selling things illegally or on the black and gray markets. Those are two different things.
Well, I knew that agorism was like a political methodology to affect change.
Right.
It was an activist methodology. I didn't think that they had any expectation that it was going to have that degree of an effect, though.
Read an Agorist primer. It's very short and it's very explicit. I did a run through on Twitter and did a thread on it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very explicit. This is not only the only way of doing it, it's the most libertarian way of doing it. So
I don't see how it does. So I have to agree with you. I don't see how it does enough for the state to really even care about it.
Okay, so in the Soviet Union, a lot of people will say, and I did a video about just this aspect of it, libertarian or that agorism it brought down the Soviet Union, and I made the case that it not only not brought down the Soviet Union, it prolonged the existence of the Soviet Union. So when it comes to collapsed states, a lot of times when states just kind of collapse through the ways that communism kind of does it. Usually results in like millions and millions of people just dying brutally, through starvation and stuff like that. And it's awful. But when people don't start dropping like flies, the totalitarianism sticks around for a little bit longer. And when people are able to trade under the rug or under the table, so to speak, of goods and services and food and just to keep them to the next day, then it allows the system to stay a little bit longer. What brought down the Soviet Union was not trade or agorism or anything like that. It was a bunch of pressure from internally and externally, glasnost, perestroika. And the big one that kind of kicked off all of that stuff was Chernobyl and them keep getting caught in lies and trying to cover it up. And especially all the death tolls and stuff like that, they just couldn't keep it under wraps. And that's what brought down the fallibility of the machine to the most people. Everyone started going like, okay, I can't believe you. And even when they tried to do perestroika and glasnost, the whole point of it is we're going to have a little bit more open elections and we're going to be a little bit more honest and transparent. We're going to open up all these documents. People are going like, okay, now you're just being honest with me about how much you're full of crap. And so they even had less expectations of them being honest in the future. And then that's when the system just collapsed. Not only that, but you had like Gorbachev and talking to people like Reagan and Thatcher who were convincing him to liberalize, and he was going through with it. In fact, he was a reform candidate for the general secretary chair, and that he was probably the most instrumental in taking down the Soviet Union. even though he wanted to do some more liberal reforms, he ended up just saying, screw it, let's take it down.
Do agorists claim that agorism took down the Soviet Union? That's another new one. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, it's just go on Twitter and type in agorism USSR or Soviet Union, and you'll see tons of people saying agorism took down the Soviet Union. And when I did my video on it, that's what I did. I typed on Twitter. I was just like agorism Soviet Union, agorism USSR. I had people like Ace, forget his last name, Ace, but you know who I'm talking about, the one with the Jake the dog avatar. He was saying that. A bunch of just random like agorists were saying this. People that I know and respect are saying this. It's just not true. There's just no evidence to support that at all. If anything, there's evidence to support that it kept it going.
My favorite type of agorism, it just makes life a little less rough around the edges. And one of my favorite forms is you hire somebody to get something done, and you're like, hey, what's your cash price? Like, that's agorism. Like, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's
that's
great and it
counter-economics.
helps. Okay. Well, I mean, if you're doing it for the purpose of if you're doing it for the purpose of diminishing the state's control, then that's agorism. It's a purpose, right?
And I'm not against people doing that. Like, people automatically assume like, oh, you just want everybody to pay their taxes. It's like, no, it's not. Like I said, there's lots of good uses for agorism, and I think it's beneficial to most people to be able to buy things under the state's radar and safely, and if cheaper. If you can buy milk from your local dairy, under the table, great. That's awesome. Tell me how to do it, because I want to do it too. But the idea that it's going to take down the state, I think that's very fallacious. It's not possible.
Yeah, I don't see how that would. So, like, maybe a case could be made before the government gave itself the right to print money, but there's not really an economic attack vector there. If they hit a deficit, they can just print whatever they need.
Yeah,
they don't even need to tax you to stay afloat, because they can just print or go burr more. So I don't see the argument there. Maybe you can recommend an agorist that we can have on that can really make a strong case for it, because I'm not seeing it.
I do know somebody. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but anytime I make stuff, he's always kind of in agreement with me, but he thinks that I'm still wrong.
Okay. All right, cool. So
I'll find his name, yeah.
The last thing that we can talk about is prohibition. You know quite a bit about this, and I know very little.
I did a whole video about
it. You seem to make the case that it was like way worse than I think most people know or think about, right?
Yep. So in the United States, there is a system of neo-prohibition, and the neo-prohibitionists would call other things neo-prohibitionism, and that's why they exist, to prevent neo-prohibitionism. It's such a convoluted thing. So in the United States,
I'm already lost. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So neo-prohibitionism is the idea of having a prohibitionary system while still allowing alcohol to be legal, quote unquote, but they're just taxed and regulated almost to death to prevent anybody except for the big players in town, like Miller Coors, Anheuser-Busch. God, who is the company that owns,
you're saying the current status quo is neo-prohibitionary.
Yes, that is what's existing today.
Okay.
Back in the day, in the early days of the United States, Americans loved alcohol. And in fact, if you go and look at like pictures of Americans in like those black and white photos, a lot of them are cross-eyed, and especially the men. And the reason why they were cross-eyed is because constantly they were going to the saloon, getting drunk, getting rowdy, and starting into fight. And so they constantly got punched in the head. And so a lot of them started getting like cross-eyes because of it.
Okay.
Johnny Appleseed. People look at Johnny Appleseed as like he was a guy who went around and just planted orchards so everybody can eat apples. That's completely Disney. That's not true what happened at all. It's a Disney version of it. What he did was he was planting orchards of crab apples so that people could use those crab apples, because the only thing that's useful for crab apples is making apple cider. And we're not talking about like the apple cider that Welch's makes. We're talking about the apple cider that Angry Orchard makes. Alcoholic. Americans loved alcohol, and Johnny Appleseed was trying to make everybody have access to hard apple cider. Americans love to drink. And then during Prohibition, because alcoholism was so bad in the United States, like it was basically turning America into a giant toilet, especially with gin. And there was a lot of good reason, wrong, but there was a lot of good reasons to think that prohibition might be a good idea. And so feminists and the KKK teamed up to to ban alcohol in the United States. And it was such a huge disaster, but people still wanted a way to kind of regulate how much people drank when they re-legalized it. So they created a 3-tier system. So in the United States, if you're producing alcohol, you can't just make beer and then sell it to somebody. You can through your distillery, and depending on certain states, like in Texas, there's only like a limit of how much you can sell out of your distillery. But if you want to just like make a business and sell it in your stores, you have to convince a distributor to sell your product and have room on his truck in order to deliver it to a store. And usually those distributors are the ones who are planning the shelves in the beer aisles. Not so much true in the liquor in the aisles, but still, you have to convince a distributor. And that distributor's job is only to collect alcohol from the distributor and put it on the store shelves. A job that pretty much any large company can do, or they could do through shipping methods like UPS and FedEx or whatever. But they need to have that 3-tier system in order to allow the big players in town to keep out competition. And all it's done is kept out like craft and small businesses products from being on the shelves and been available to most people. And I remember when I was younger, it was a lot worse. It's a lot better now, but it's still bad. But there was a beer that I liked called, in fact, I have the brewery, Stone Brewing. It was a beer called Arrogant Bastard Ale, which I have the giant bottles of. That was my favorite beer. And the only place that I could get it was like in a very small boutique shop in Riverside, California. And I had to drive all the way downtown to get it. And that was a place that just started picking it up. And before then I had to go like way outside of town. I can't remember what store it was, just to try to find this thing, even though the demand was there to get it. And finally they just had to cave and start letting more craft distilleries or breweries start carrying product on their shelves or product on their trucks in order to sell to stores. It's getting a little bit better now, but it's still bad. In the United States, okay, so in, like, let's say Scotland, right? So if I wanted to make a scotch, the rules for making scotch is you have to, like, distill it no higher than 80% and put it in a barrel for at least 3 years in one day. And it doesn't matter what kind of it is, and so long as it's oak barrels, you're good. You can produce it and sell it as whatever you want. There's some laws about like non-chill filtering and the ABV, and like you can only sell it at 40%, but it's like the regulations on that are very little. In the United States, it has insane, like, in order for you to call yourself bourbon, you have to be made with at least 51% corn. It has to be aged. There has to be distilled no higher than 165 proof. It can't be put in a barrel any higher than 125 proof. It has to be put in a brand new American white oak container that's charred on the inside. It has to be aged. It has to be. It can be aged for any amount of time, but to be called straight bourbon, has to be aged for at least 2 years, and it has to be at least 4 years if you don't want to put a age statement on it. And I can just go on and on and on and on and on and on and rattle on and on about all the regulations and you need to be bourbon. Rye, it's the same thing, except you just change it out with rye grain instead of corn. Malt whiskey is the same thing. It has to be at least 51% corn. And all those regulations are very, very, very stringent on what you can call it, how it's made, and what you can call it when you put it in a bottle. And what you can put in. You also can't have coloring, et cetera, et cetera.
It's easy to forget. Like, it's easy to just get used to the current state of tyranny and just assume that things are normal. Like, why can't I order a bottle of my favorite whiskey on Amazon and have it here tomorrow morning? Why not?
And in Britain.
Because these psychos, these psychos just they think they control everything. And it's so weird. People just forget and they get used to it. Like, I don't hear anybody complaining that we can't buy hard alcohol on Sundays. But how just dumb is that? I mean, well, I do,
because I lived in Nevada for 10 years.
Oh yeah. Now you moved to Texas and you experience this hell that we have here that everybody's used to. And and it's so weird that, like, their priorities, I mean, I'm kind of glad, I guess, if your priority is going to be somewhere, it should be on gun rights. But, like, they got constitutional carry in Texas recently, where you no longer need a license to carry concealed. But you can't buy a fifth on Sunday. It's just it's psycho. It's absolutely psychopathic.
Yeah, I did a video did a video not too long ago on my channel, which I really need to start putting more time in it, but it's Average Whiskey Enjoyer. And I did a comparison between Fireball, which I hate Fireball. It's disgusting, awful cinnamon whiskey. But they came out with a version called Cinnamon. So there's
Shots
Fireball
fired.
Cinnamon, there's some Fireball Cinnamon, and then there's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. The cinnamon whiskey is the ones you buy at the liquor store. It's got 30% out, 33% alcohol, whatever. The cinnamon is the one that they can sell in gas stations and convenience stores and stuff like that, because it's not whiskey. It's a wine that they flavored like the cinnamon whiskey, and it's only got 14%. But in Texas, you can't sell liquor in a grocery store. You can in Vegas, but you can't in Texas. And so they had to create another product, and it got confusing for most consumers, and they filed a lawsuit with Sazerac. But it's kind of Texas's and all these other states' faults that have like these rules that say only certain businesses can sell alcohol, and the rules that they have to abide by when they create their liquor stores that don't exist in a lot of other places like California or Nevada, which when California is more free, come on, you got to step up your game, Texas. Come on.
You go a couple hours north of me over the border into Oklahoma, and all the beer there is watered down. The alcohol content is like 75%.
They do syrup there still?
It's like 75% of the beer. So like a normal beer is just less alcoholic there. And so you go to Oklahoma, and it's like what happened with you when you moved to Texas from Nevada. You go to Oklahoma and you're like, what's wrong with y'all's beer? And they're like, oh, it's normal beer. I'm like, no, it's not. This is weird. What's wrong with you people? It's just
I think they recently lifted that. I know a lot of states. Yeah, because Kansas had that too. When I first moved there.
Well, that's good.
And I still got drunk. I don't get drunk anymore. I can't stand the feeling of getting buzzed, let alone drunk. But when I still did get drunk.
Well, you're Catholic, so you know.
Pseudo Catholic. Old Catholic. When I went to Kansas, and I was like, I was having a rough day at work, and I was just like, I need to get a 6-pack of beer. I bought a 6-pack of beer at a Quick Trip, which, by the way, I love how Texas has Quick Trips. That was the one thing I did miss from Kansas. And then I bought a 6-pack of Red Stripe because it was the best beer that they had, because it was mostly just swill that they were selling. And I was like, it's the middle of the night. It's all I can get. So got it home, drank it, and I was like, I didn't even feel a buzz. What is going on here? And I was like, oh, it's like 3.2% alcohol.
Where's your Buseys? I know you have a Buseys stuffed animal somewhere.
Oh, it's right there.
Oh, okay, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, right next to Paddington.
And I say Buseys to trigger people. It's Bucky's.
Yeah, Buseys. Man, I went into a Bussies yesterday.
A Bussies? Oh man.
Came in there again.
Guys, if you haven't been to a Bucky's, you haven't lived.
Oh, I now moved to a town that has a Bucky's, and since I've been here, I've not been. I need to go tonight. I probably will go there tonight. Yeah, I no longer live in San Antonio. I couldn't take it there anymore.
You're spoiled now that you have your own Bucky's.
Spoiled.
All right, Jim. Tell us where everybody can find you.
You can always check me out at jimjesus.com. It has a link to all the things that I'm doing. Also, you can check me out on YouTube at Jim Jesus. I guess they allow ats now. Twitter is also at Jim Jesus. The Lolberts.com or Lolberts.com will have my podcast, which we will be getting back on the chair as soon as I can wrangle those cat co-hosts. And you can always join our Discord server, which is lolberts.discord.com or discord.lolberts.com. Excuse me, backwards. Scratch that, reverse it. Discord.lolberts.com, and you can join there. I
was about to say, how did you get that subdomain, man?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I could. Cool. The subdomain's to mix. I'm going to say it again. Discord.lolberts.com.
Links will be in the description. Just give me all these links. I'll put them in the description for people so they don't get confused. And we'll do it. Jim, it's been a pleasure. Is there anything else you'd like to say? I'll give you the last word. What do you wish all libertarians would do differently starting now?
Be critical of yourselves and other libertarians. Don't be a fakertarians like I just hate everybody, but be skeptical. Fair but skeptical.
Good advice. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out, Jim. I enjoyed it. Look forward to our next chat. Peace, love,
Worms
and anarchy.
and worms.